Have you ever opened a bag of potato chips and paused for half a second at that sharp, satisfying crackle? That sound feels small, almost meaningless. Yet it carries a story far bigger than the snack in your hand. Potato chips are not just thin slices of fried potatoes. They are the result of myth, obsession, industrial ambition, marketing genius, scientific precision, and cultural change. What began as a local curiosity turned into a global habit, eaten in living rooms, stadiums, offices, and road trips across the world. This is not just the story of how potato chips were made. This is the story of how they quietly reshaped the way modern society snacks, consumes, and craves. The most famous origin story takes us back to 1853, to Moon's Lake House in Saratoga Springs, New York. According to legend, a wealthy and demanding customer complained that his fried potatoes were too thick. The cook, George Crum, irritated by the repeated criticism, sliced the potatoes paper thin, fried them until they shattered, and sent them out as an act of sarcasm. Instead of anger, the customer loved them. Those crispy slices became known as Saratoga chips and quickly spread through the resort. The tale is dramatic, memorable, and perfectly shaped for folklore. But history, once examined closely, tells a more complicated story. When historians peeled back the layers, they found that thin fried potatoes existed long before Crum's kitchen experiment. Recipes for thinly sliced fried potatoes appeared as early as 1817 in British cookbooks. Newspaper accounts from the 1840s describe diners in Saratoga raving about crispy potatoes years before Crum worked at Moon's Lake House. Even the famous diner often named in the story, Commodore Vanderbilt, was not present during the supposed incident, and the Moon family did not own the resort at the time. George Crum did not invent potato chips. What he did was popularize them, serving them consistently, proudly, and successfully. He turned a regional novelty into a recognized delicacy, earning a reputation not as an inventor, but as the man who made chips famous. For decades, potato chips remained a fragile, local treat. They were fried by hand, sold loose from barrels or glass jars, and scooped into paper bags by shopkeepers. By the time customers reached home, many chips were stale or broken. Taste was never the problem. Preservation and scale were. The transformation began in the early 20th century, when mechanization entered the process. Mechanical slicers created perfectly uniform potato rounds. Continuous fryers replaced individual kettles. Steam-powered systems allowed potatoes to be peeled, sliced, and fried in smooth, uninterrupted flow. Chips could finally be produced in quantity, but they still needed protection from air, moisture, and time. That protection arrived in 1926 through an unexpected innovator. Laura Scudder, a California entrepreneur, began sealing potato chips inside waxed paper bags, ironing the edges shut by hand. This simple change transformed the industry. Chips stayed fresh longer, traveled farther, and arrived intact. Cellophane and glassine followed, then heat-sealed paper and eventually foil-lined plastic bags in the 1950s. Packaging turned chips from a local product into a national one. For the first time, potato chips could survive long distance shipping without losing their crunch, and the snack was ready to spread. With production and packaging solved, entrepreneurs moved quickly. In 1932, Herman Lay began selling potato chips from the trunk of his car in Nashville. He understood routes, distribution, and branding better than recipes. By the late 1930s, Lay's chips were being marketed nationally. Regional brands emerged across America, each serving local tastes. By mid-century, nearly every city had its own chip maker. Chips were affordable, familiar, and increasingly visible. They were no longer a side dish. They were becoming a category of their own. Marketing completed the transformation. In 1961, Lay's introduced a slogan that would define snacking psychology. Betcha can eat just one. It was playful, confident, and deeply accurate. Chips were engineered to be thin, salty, and crisp, triggering the brain's reward system and encouraging repeated bites. Advertising, television sponsorships, and celebrity endorsements embedded chips into American culture. They became the default snack for sports games, parties, and casual gatherings. Chips were no longer eaten quietly. They were announced with a crinkle. World War II briefly interrupted this rise. In 1942, the U.S. government labeled potato chips non-essential and halted production to conserve oil and potatoes. The public response was immediate and furious. Manufacturers lobbied, citizens complained, and the ban was lifted within months. With sugar and sweets still rationed, potato chips surged in popularity. They were salty comfort in uncertain times. The crunch became a small but meaningful morale booster. And after the war, consumption only accelerated. If this story is already changing the way you look at something as simple as a bag of chips, take a moment to like this video. It helps keep deep, research-based stories like this alive. And if you are new here, subscribe, because the crunch-driven journey is far from over. Post-war America embraced convenience. Television entered living rooms. Suburbs expanded. Vending machines filled offices and schools. Potato chips fit perfectly into this new lifestyle. They required no refrigeration, stayed fresh on shelves, and delivered instant satisfaction. No birthday party, baseball game, or road trip felt complete without them. Chips were easy, reliable, and comforting. They became woven into everyday routines, turning snacking into a habit rather than an occasion. The next major shift came through flavor. In 1954, an Irish crisp company introduced cheese and onion-flavored chips, proving that seasoning could transform the experience. Soon followed salt and vinegar, barbecue, sour cream and onion, and countless variations. Industrial seasoning systems allowed precise coating at massive scale. Taste became engineered. Chips were no longer just potatoes and salt. They were customizable, regional, experimental. Flavor innovation kept consumers curious and loyal. Preservation technology continued advancing. Laminated plastic bags blocked oxygen and light. Nitrogen flushing replaced air inside packaging, preventing spoilage and breakage. Shelf life extended from weeks to months. Chips could now cross oceans. The snack went global in Britain and Ireland. Crisps featured prawn cocktail and roast chicken flavors. In Asia, seaweed, curry, kimchi, and wasabi dominated shelves. In Latin America, chili, lime, and spice blends took over. Even the base ingredient diversified, with sweet potatoes, plantains, taro, and lentils sliced and fried into crisp snacks worldwide. As chips spread, so did criticism. Nutritionists pointed out their high fat and salt content. Studies linked frequent consumption to weight gain, heart disease, and high blood pressure. Chips became symbols of ultra-processed food, engineered for pleasure rather than nourishment. Public pressure pushed the industry to adapt. Reduced fat options appeared, oils changed, salt levels were adjusted gradually. Baked and alternative chips entered the market. The industry responded, but the core appeal remained the same. Chips were never meant to be health food. They were meant to be enjoyable. Despite debates, potato chips remained culturally dominant. They appeared in iconic television commercials, sponsored major sporting events, and filled supermarket aisles. Limited edition flavors created excitement. Contests invited consumers to invent new tastes. Even luxury experiments emerged, including gourmet chips infused with truffle or specialty salts. From vending machines to high-end tastings, chips proved endlessly adaptable. Today, potato chips are consumed in staggering quantities. In the United States alone, billions of pounds are eaten every year. What began as thin slices of fried potato evolved into a multi-billion-dollar global industry. The journey from folklore to factory reveals something deeper about modern food. Chips reflect how technology, marketing, psychology, and culture intersect. They show how a simple idea can grow when production scales. Packaging protects and desire is carefully cultivated. The true legacy of the potato chip is not just its crunch. It is its ability to adapt, survive, and thrive across generations. From Saratoga Springs to supermarkets worldwide, chips followed society shifts, meeting people where they were. They became comfort, habit, and ritual. We may never know who truly served the first chip, or whether it was made in frustration or curiosity. What we do know is that once the crunch began, the world never stopped listening. If this story made you pause before your next handful of chips, share it with someone who loves snacks but never questioned their past. Drop a comment with the flavor that defines your childhood, and subscribe for more deep, cinematic histories of everyday foods that quietly shaped our world. Because behind every crunch, there is a story, and some of them are louder than we ever imagined.